Fuck you.
That's how you do it?
The Blue Boy Scout, the last son. Not a bird, not a plane, but a man. A Superman. Welcome, all you beautiful ladies and animals, to yet another delve into the universe of 40k, with the inclusion of the archetypal hero, the ideal, the standard Superman. We've definitely come close to this before, looking at Bruce and the Viltrumites in previous videos, but today is special. Today is different, because today I get to spill some grim hope all over the place. Superman is a fantastic character, dare I say the best hero character. You may have your favorites. I'm not even sure if he's my favorite, but he's the classic hero for a reason. When you hear the word superhero, you think of that bright yellow and red badge. When you look to the sky and imagine flying, you remember the first time you saw Clark Kent take off into space. So join me, dear viewer, as today we put that symbol of hope into the grimdark future of Warhammer 40k. As always, if you like this and want even more, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and like the video so I know exactly what kind of videos you will want to see in the future. And another grandiose thank you to all my wonderful members and patrons. If you want to know more about the perks and benefits, stick around to the end of the video. For now, let's talk about the Kansas Farm Bowl. Now, picking exactly what variant of Superman to use is a tall order. He's over 80 years old at this point and has appeared in so many comics it would take you months to read them all. So many games and movies and variants that also shift wildly in power. For today, we're going to take a look at the current continuation of Superman in DC, who himself is a kind of conglomerate between pre- and post-crisis on Infinite Earth Superman, with a dash of the New 52 in there as well. But where does that land our Superman? Well, the strongest any superhero named Superman could get. A guy who can hold a nuclear bomb shut with his palms. A guy who can outrace photons and punch through planets with ease. A guy who can defy the laws of reality just because his girl is in danger. I'd mention how he can throw a Warlord Titan into orbit or force a craft world to ground, but we all know the man who can tow Earth over his shoulder isn't facing any physical challenges in 40k. Because while Warhammer gets crazy, that's mostly due to scale. Trillions of bodies, millions of space marines, an unending horde of orcs or tyranids that never fail to make pace. For regular humans, yes, it's overbearing, but even the strongest of the Daemon Primarchs, who split planets with the help of rituals and chaos, aren't facing up physically against a guy who can punch a hole through Terra if he really wanted to. The only thing that can really stop Superman is kryptonite, which doesn't exist in Warhammer. No Krypton, no kryptonite from when it exploded, or whatever origin the kryptonite may have in a given instance. Krypton, the noble gas, does exist in Warhammer as it's a real thing in the real world, but that's just used to make neon signs, and we don't exactly see Superman getting beaten down by the Metropolis skyline or anything like that. And even beyond that, kryptonite, not from his home dimension, even within DC, normally won't bring down supes. So even if they can create or synthesize it within the grimdark future, it wouldn't work anyways. And you might say magic, but that's another loose idea that doesn't really have any steadfast properties. It's more so like he doesn't have any resistance to magic. It doesn't mean that he can't withstand an incredibly powerful magic blast, just that instead of tanking a magical bomb with the force of a dying galaxy, he can only really tank like the force of a supernova. Which, it's still fucking crazy. Otherwise, nothing can make the guy flinch, besides being on the level of punching through a planet strong or putting innocent people in harm's way. And Warhammer 40k definitely has one of those. But we're gonna hold off on the delving into the long list of what Superman has been capable of until they're relevant. For now, let's get right into the far future. Starting off our adventure in Warhammer, we're going to look at the many alien species across the Milky Way. Which ones would accept Clark, which ones would be against him, and which ones he would have to break apart. Now, something to get right about Superman is that he cares for all life. Not just human life, not just Earth life, but life in general. Whether it's a human child, a squirrel, a monster from the depths wreaking havoc, or a rogue sun threatening to devour soul. Even when they are heinous, Clark wants to offer a second chance to each and every living thing across the universe. That wouldn't be too different here. If there's an alien to be reasoned with, he will. If he can take the time to speak with the Tau, uproot the issues of their brainwashed society, he will. If the Votan need help punching back ginormous asteroids that threaten their spacecraft or come under siege from homicidal cultists, he will help. If the Eldar have a craft world that needs defending, he will show up and protect their right to life, even if they look down upon him while he does so. When looking at Xenos, a lot of people will go off the Imperium perspective of the Eldar being just as xenophobic as they are, which, well sure, the Eldar or any faction of 40k aren't explicitly good, they aren't above diplomacy and talking it out either. The route Clark would go. It just happens to be that the Imperium survivalist attitude asks them to shoot first and never ask questions, so obviously the Eldar and anyone else just returns in kind. Or the Imperium mistaking Eldar and Dark Eldar, and attacking them as if they're the same. But we know that the Eldar aren't below diplomacy and have even helped the Imperium before. With a mediary who desires peace, I could easily see a Xenos coalition of Votan, Tau, and Eldar created under Clark's watch. Now, the tougher question is how he handles the more abrasive alien species, the Orcs, the Drukhari, the Tyranids, and of course, the Necrons. Orcs might be reasoned with, but they want a good fight. The best Superman can do is try and push their lust for combat towards a greater good, pointing the greenskins at Tyranids and the like, but he may have to give them a fight that would see the Orcs becoming more and more unruly as it went on. Truthfully, it would be bad for the galaxy if either Orcs or Tyranids fought the Man of Steel for any extended period of time. Would the Orcs become Krorks? Likely not. Superman is an immense powerhouse, but the Krorks were a part of a war that used stars as ammunition. While he's incredibly powerful individually, I don't think he would be affecting all of Orc culture across the galaxy to the extent that the species on whole would change. There's just not enough exposure to Clark's power at the scale needed for that kind of momentum to take place. And just as an aside, the Orcs wouldn't kill Superman with the power of belief. That's not how it works. I've seen people say in comments under my similar videos, like against Guardians from Destiny, that the Orcs would just imagine the Guardians are mortal, so boom, they die. That's not how the Orcs' mental aura works. They wouldn't see Clark as a human and just make it so that he's vulnerable to regular bullets. If an Orc thinks a rock is a grenade, it might explode when he throws it, but that same rock in anyone else's hands is just a rock. Orc belief makes their stuff work for them, not against others. They can't imagine Superman mortal and suddenly warp him into one. They're not keeping the Emperor alive with good vibes either. When you hear stories about Orcs believing that someone's immortal and start missing all their shots, it's not because the person is suddenly actually unkillable, it's because the Orcs' own belief throws off their aim. Their accuracy tanks, and in their heads, that's proof of invincibility, which to them is kinda the same thing. But if anyone else were to show up and attack that quote-unquote immortal person, they would just stab them in the face. The main mechanic here is that the Orcs are just very stupid and suggestible. When fighting someone who can fly without wings, it might be enough to convince some Orcs that being especially strong grants you flight and take off from there, but it wouldn't work the other way around. But as they come back again and again, another species of doomsday-esque monsters are empowered by every battle they lose against Kent. However, like with Doomsday, Superman is not lost for options when it comes to Orcs and Tyranids. While he is not as smart as the creator in Jor-El, Clark could conceivably rebuild a Phantom Zone projector in the universe of Warhammer 40k. And in fact, he might even be helped by a species that would give him pause in battle. The Necron Empire is dying. For millennia they have sat in silence, rarely stirred and decaying, rotting like a carcass from the inside out. They are splintered, separated, and losing ground between enemies and internal conflicts aplenty. The only reason they've somewhat begun to reconnect is over the Silent King's concern with the Tyranid invasion. As he offers a chance to put Tyranids away and lock up the key, Clark could be the solution to the Necron Dynasty's greatest threat, building a portal into the Phantom Zone so that every Orc and Tyranid in the galaxy and beyond could be shoved into a place where they could no longer harm anyone. And if they wanted to fight him themselves, well, I don't think the Necrons would have much that would work on him. People tend to speak about the Necrons in 40k as if they had just got done fighting the war in heaven, but they haven't. Using the stars as ammunition is something they did once, yes, but not something they continue to regularly do. The most powerful weapon we know they have, the Array, is not only kept secret from most of the other Necrons, but rarely used because the dynasty that controls it are worried that it could destroy reality if mishandled. Are the Necrons tough? Yes. Can they wipe out hundreds of humans and severely wreck dozens of Astartes with a single unit? Without a doubt. But we're not talking about a space marine. We're talking about the Superman, a guy who resisted an attack that was coded to his unique genetic makeup, a guy who can bench press planets and shut off any tomb world with a single punch. He cares about life, but mindless automatons is a separate thing. But even still, I don't doubt that Clark would try his absolute hardest to help the Necrons regain their bodies. But if they don't want to work with him for one reason or another, they can go into the Phantom Zone all the same, living out an endless existence in a realm made up of orcs, Tyranids, and an angry death baby somewhere in the middle. Now don't worry, I didn't forget about the Drukhari. For them, Clark has to essentially toss them away into the Phantom Zone all the same. They aren't as open to the idea of diplomacy and take a lot of joy in their cavernous works. But a smaller race of sadist elves is not nearly as much work for the Man of Steel. Even as dangerous as the Eldar can be, Superman would outpunch his way through the whole species. His biggest issue would be Kamara, the dark city of the Drukhari that's hidden in the webway. Not only finding his way there, but existing in a place without any sunlight would severely limit his abilities and might even be stopped entirely from entering. But any Eldar coming out to try and inflict pain outside the webway would be subject to truth and justice for anyone that stands beside the Kryptonian. And for the inside of it, well, his dealings with the Craft Worlds and their mutual hatred for the pirates of the Webway could see Clark and the Eldar teaming up to bring these architects from the Great Collapse to that justice. In the same way his mutual goal in stopping the Tyranids would see the Necrons bridge an alliance with him. For many of the Xenos species, Superman would become a guiding light and a beacon of hope, a reason to fight and a chance for a better tomorrow. Essentially, not that far off from Ben 40,000. But with a league of alien empires, Kent needs to turn his head towards the Imperium. The Imperium of Man in the modern age of 40k is in trouble. Aliens on all sides resent them or want them gone. Chaos has reared its head, more powerful than it has ever been. Half the galaxy, and by extension half the Imperium, is in peril, with the other half being barely held together by Guilliman, while raiding parties from the Tyranids have begun to devour entire worlds. What they need is a savior, a hero, hope. And that's exactly what Superman offers. We know the Imperium isn't against teaming up with Xenos to fight the greater bad. If Clark can organize a meet with Guilliman and the 12 Lords, a new crusade might be able to get off the ground. The Unification Crusade, where negotiation between Clark, Guilliman, the Tau, Eldar, Votan, and maybe even the Necrons would see the more diplomatic aliens across the galaxy somewhat eye to eye in order to devise a plan to handle their greatest enemies so that the remaining societies can divide the galaxy amongst themselves. But only if they agree by mutual consent. Superman can't force anyone to play nice. If they want to hide out in some corner of the galaxy, they'll be welcome to. He's not a god and won't pretend to be, but maintaining peace, or even beginning the road to it, will require Clark to wage the largest war he's ever been a part of. There's not one villain like Darkseid to beat down, but hundreds of villainous aliens across the galaxy.
I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard, always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone.
Anyone not willing to be fair, sabotaging their efforts for peace, or attacking civilians are getting ejected from the coalition, trapped on any number of uncountable prison worlds, or if bad enough, sent into the Phantom Zone with the Orcs and Tyranids. Those who stay, who understand their chance to eradicate chaos and the greater Xenos threats, are welcomed by the Man of Steel as he prepares to bring justice to the galaxy. Now, while smaller Xenos factions are mostly unified and could come together, the Imperium is like 7 other factions on their own, wrapped up in a galaxy-wide trench coat. There's no guarantee they will work with Clark outside of ensuring their immediate survival. At least, not how the Imperium that existed beforehand did. The Imperium that emerges from this war of unity, joining war fronts across the galaxy to aid Alien in arms and fight back against chaos and other threats like the Tyranids, would look in one of 2 ways. The first option, they evolve, a renewed chance of prosperity, hope, future, an Imperium that no longer needs to cling onto their old dogmatic cults like a wounded dog, but one that could break free from its shell and lead the Milky Way into a greater future where Xenos and mankind secure a lasting peace only broken up by localized sector-to-sector wars, rather than firing upon anything and everything that looks different from them. The second option is, they tear themselves apart. From the fanatical Sisters and Templars, to the ever-loyal Custodes and Gilliman's waning pull in the Imperium, Clark is against an entire civilization of paranoid, untrusting, irrational psychotics who have only survived so long because they shoot anything that gets in the way. Not that they'd be able to handle Superman. If it came to, he could fistfight all 10,000 of the Golden Custodes without breaking a sweat. But that doesn't mean that he can beat them all into submission. At that point, the regime would just have to be dismantled because they wouldn't abide by the Xenos coalition. Half the Imperium would collapse again in a second grand heresy, the other half taking on a new name, gaining new allies, advancing with technology, while the old Imperium rots around the core of Terra. Envious and spiteful in its existence, but likely on limited time, a pulse and heartbeat of humanity's worst aspects, closing until it fades into the shadow of stars. But with the mortals of Warhammer taken care of, those who join under the banner of Krypton and Hope only have one thing to contend with now: the great devious powers of chaos. We've talked a lot on this channel about how to beat the great game. From characters that could just rewrite reality into ridding the warp's connection to real space, to others that would beat the Chaos Gods with their own bare hands. Superman would be facing his greatest challenge yet, and the issue of magic comes to harm him first and foremost. As I brought up early on, Superman is not weak to magic, it just happens that he doesn't have magical resistance either. Meaning a plague of Nurgle would be just as dangerous to him as any other creature in the Milky Way. The lash of a bloodthirster or the spells of a changelord would see the Kansas farm boy at his weakest, and if going in without any strong understanding of what he's facing, would end up killing him. Superman, Clark Kent, dead at the face of the worst powers known to all life across the galaxy, across all time, molded by his care for others, and melted by the inane stylings of unknowable, undying, eldritch gods. But there's something more powerful than fists, than the ability to fly faster than light and punch through worlds. Something I haven't brought up, or the failed Supermen, the Superman variants that kill and slaughter when things don't go their way, the Injustice Superman and the like, because they aren't Superman. Clark wouldn't go on a killing spree even after a devastating loss. He'd hide himself away on some far-off rock before he became a megalomaniac. Superman is the ultimate symbol of hope. across mediums, across to other heroes, across the multiverse, here, and across the Milky Way. The Clark Kent we all know and love. The Man of Steel. The Man of Tomorrow. Superman is that hope manifest. And in Warhammer 40k, that hope is literal. The Chaos Gods are not putting a plague of horror against some random blue-suited farm boy with a heart of gold. They are attempting to smolder the embers of a force for hope so strong, a god whose powers and admiration are all earned through the good and kindness he brings along with him every step of the way. A new contender to the Chaos Pantheon, born not of slaughter or pestilence or change or avarice, but of love. A pure, undying, honest love that cannot be rivaled by carnal lust nor eternal pledge. Call it what you will, the human spirit, the power of friendship, the armor of narrative itself. Superman is that symbol, and in the universe of 40k, he is even greater. The Chaos Gods would not just buckle, but they'd be fundamentally changed by the effect Clark would have on the universe, the undoubtable good he would bring. Truth, justice, and a better tomorrow manifest. Because if it needs to be done, it's a job for... Supes is one of my favorite comic characters of all time. From back when I compared him with the Salamanders to even now with all the love he's been getting since James Gunn's Superman blew everyone away. So obviously this matchup had to come eventually. But let me know what you think down below, and if you think I should do a more Injustice-y Grimdark Superman like I did for Ben 10 and Gen Rex in the past. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing, sharing the video around, and all that fun stuff. It's genuinely appreciated and helps the channel grow, so I can justify making more of these fantastical comparisons, all free on YouTube, for all of you. And as always, a fantastic thank you to all my members and patrons who you can join for just $1 a month. You'll get videos early, ad-free, with the ability to vote on upcoming content and some other behind-the-scenes goodies. I'm even working on making some member-exclusive perks in the Discord channel, also linked down below and free for everyone. Stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.